Good morning, Year 4, and welcome to your English lesson today. Today we're learning to plan a Roman myth. Now, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be writing our Roman myth, so we're going to make sure we plan it carefully, and we're going to take a couple of days to make sure we've fully planned and understand what we're going to write about. So our plan is all going to be based on the myth, the man who cut down trees. So when we come to write our myth, it's going to be based on this myth. It won't be exactly the same. You'll be able to change it to your own style, but it will be based around the story of the man who cut down trees. So the first thing we need to do in order to plan out our myth is to think, what were the main events in the myth, the man who cut down trees? So I read through it again, and I've attached it to today's assignment in case you want to read through it again. But when I looked through it, I thought these were the main events that happened in the story. Firstly, he cuts down the trees. It wouldn't really work as a story about a man who cuts down trees unless he cuts down some trees. Then, Ceres finds the trees that have been hacked down. So this is the next important thing, because obviously if she doesn't find them, then there's no curse on him. The third one, he is so hungry that he eats all the food in the house. This is when we start to realise there's a problem. He's eating all the food in the house. He's getting really, really hungry. Fourth, he runs out of money, so he borrows more of it to buy food. This is when it really starts to go downhill from him. He's eaten all the food in the house. He's eaten everything he can. He spent all his money, so he goes out and gets more money in order to buy food. Number 5, he tries to sell his daughter as a slave to buy more food. Now, you know you're in serious trouble if you're starting to sell your children. Most parents probably wouldn't sell their children. Maybe they would, but you probably wouldn't sell them just to buy food. 6, Neptune saves his daughter by disguising her as a fisherman. It never says whether she turns back into a daughter or whether she stays as a fisherman. One hopes that she turns back into a daughter and she doesn't spend the rest of her days as a smelly fish person. But he gets disguised so that he can't be sold as a slave. 7, he eats himself. And this is my favourite bit of the story. But this is kind of his ending at the end. A wonderful, terrible thing he's done at the beginning, cutting down trees. Here he is. He eats himself. But the very final bit is everyone arrives to find that he is gone. So we learn that he's starting to eat himself. And then right at the end, everyone turns up on the beach and he's completely gone. He's so completely eaten himself. So those are the 8 main events of the myth. And that's what we're going to base our planning on today. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go through each 8 steps in turn. And what I've done is I think about alternatives that I could possibly use in each section. What I'd like you to do after each section is to pause the video and note down what you want to do. It's really important when you're planning out your myth today that you don't go too far away from this plan. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle to write the myth of what we're doing in class. Okay, so I'm looking forward to seeing some lovely creativity, but you must have 8 steps that follow what we've done here so that when we come to do the rest of the planning and the rest of the writing, you're able to follow what we're doing. Okay, so let's go on to the first step. He cuts down trees. So when I had to think about what other terrible thing could someone do in Roman times that would get them cursed, I came up with these. Your character could kill all the animals in the forest. He could slaughter all of the enemy soldiers. They could steal all of the money. He could frighten all of the citizens or knock down all of the statues. I was thinking those statues could be of gods or emperors. So I was thinking, here's some terrible things that someone could do that they probably shouldn't do that is going to really knock off the gods. Okay, so pick one of those, or if you're feeling creative, come up with something else that you think is going to really annoy the gods, something terrible someone can do, and pause the video and think of your idea now. Okay, so now you've done your first idea, let's move on to section 2. Ceres finds the trees hacked down. Okay, so what can I do instead of that? Well, I decided we could have Diana finds all the dead animals, or Mars finds all the dead soldiers, or Mercury finds all of the money missing, or Vesta finds all of the citizens scared, or Apollo finds all the statues missing. Now, I tried to match up the correct god to the correct action, but feel free to have a Google of different gods if you want to pick a different one. There were quite a few of them, but they're some of the main ones you could use. So again, have a think about what you did as your first one. What's going to happen is your second step of the plan. Pause the video and write down your ideas now. Okay, so let's move on to section 3. So the section 3 is he's so hungry he eats all of the food in the house. So I thought, what else could he do that would show that he's being cursed? Well, he feels so dirty that he constantly has to wash himself. He's never clean. He drank all of the drinks in the house. He read all of the books. He played all of the games. He lost all of his clothes. No Roman bottoms throughout your story today, but we could have he lost all his clothes. So think about what's going to happen in section 3. We know what he's done. We know which god that he has annoyed. What is going to be section 3 that shows you he's been cursed? You've got some ideas there. If you've got a better one, though, feel free to use your own to show that he's been cursed. So pause the video now and work out what you're going to have for section 3. Right, so let's have a look at section 4. He runs out of money, so he borrows more of it to buy food. So this is where he's showing the curse is really starting to struggle with him now. So I came up with he could possibly have some of these. He steals money. He steals your objects. And when I say objects, if, say, for example, he'd lost all his clothes, he could be stealing clothes. He rummages through the rubbish. He scours through the sewer for whatever it is he's looking for. Or he could end up begging on the street. So what is your character going to do now that shows that really he has gone from, he'd done the bad act, and this curse is getting worse and worse and worse. What's really happening now that's gone bad? So think about what's going to happen in section 4. Pause the video and write down what's going to happen in section 4. Right, so moving on to section 5. He tries to sell his daughter as a slave to buy more food. Right, this he's hit rock bottom now. He's selling his daughter. It's got pretty bad. So I thought, what could really happen now, similar to selling his daughter, that shows you've hit rock bottom? What I came up with. He tries to sell his wife. He tries to sell his son. He tries to sell his horse. He tries to sell his clothes. He tries to sell his house. He tries to sell the sun. He tries to sell the moon. I put the sun and the moon there because I thought it might be funny to see how someone could try and sell something like the sun or the moon that they don't have. But there are all manner of things there that he can sell. Now, I've literally just thought of things to sell. You might think of something better than just trying to sell here, but it's still got to be you've hit rock bottom and he's really trying to find something now, desperately trying to get something. So have a think about what's going to go into your section 5. Pause the video now and write it down. Okay, so let's move on to section 6. In section 6, we have Neptune saves his daughter by disguising her as a fisherman. Again, it's helpful, but not the nicest thing you could disguise someone as. So let's have a think of what you could do instead. I was thinking about different disguises for if it was a person. But if you've picked something like the sun or the moon, you might think of it different. If a house, again, you might have to think of something different. But I thought you could disguise something as a donkey or a fish or a box or a soldier or a star or a cloud or a statue. They all seem like wonderful things to disguise something as so that they could no longer be sold. So have a think about whatever it is that hit rock bottom, whatever that thing was, what is it going to be disguised as? You could also think about what god might want to do that, because Neptune helped out the daughter. Which god is going to help out the character in your story? So have a think about section 6. Too many words there. Pause the video and write it down now. Okay, let's move on to section 7. He eats himself. So this is the best bit of the myth, and this is where it all goes horribly wrong for him, and he's eaten himself. So whatever happens at the end of this, it's the end. It's terrible thing has happened to him. So I thought, what terrible thing could happen to our character? Well, maybe he tries to sell his own blood. Maybe he tries to sell his own flesh. Maybe he tries to sell himself as a slave. Whatever this thing is, it's got to be terrible. It can't be, he decides to sell his shoes. Okay, it's got to be something really terrible that's happening to him. So have a think about what is it he's going to try and sell? What's he going to try and give away? What is it that's going to happen that's going to make at the end of it, it's the end of the day for our main character? Pause the video now and think about what section 7 could be. Okay, so moving on to section 8. Everyone arrives to find that he is gone. So I thought about all the terrible things that can happen to the character and what might possibly happen right at the end of the story. So I came up with, well, if he sold all his blood, he's going to be dried up mummy. If he has sold all of his flesh, so he's cut it all off his body, he's going to be a skeleton. If he's sold himself, he's going to be sold away into the slave, and off he goes. Maybe the gods have had enough of him and send him to the underworld. Maybe he's so desperate for everything to go right that he goes absolutely crazy and he spends the rest of his days wandering around as a madman. Or maybe he now is so poor that he has to live the rest of his life as a beggar. So, what is the terrible thing that happens right at the end that shows your character probably should have been slightly nicer right at the beginning of the story? Okay, remember this is going to be the ending linking to the beginning. So, pause the video now. What's happening in your section 8? Okay, so now you should have something that looks a bit like this. So this is my plan. In my plan, when I come to write my story, we're going to have the main character is going to kill all the animals in the forest. Diana's going to come along and see all the animals and she's going to be really upset about it. He's going to go home, but he feels dirty. He can't get the blood off his hands. So he's constantly washing the blood off his hands and his face and his clothes, but he can't get that blood off. He's used all of the soap in the house. So section 4, he starts stealing money off people so he can go and buy more soap. In the end, he runs out of money, so he decides he's going to go and sell the sun. He finds someone he's going to sell the sun to. Apollo, being the sun god, does not want this to happen, so he disguises the sun as the moon. Obviously, now our main character can't sell the sun, so he tries to sell his own flesh. He starts cutting off bits of his arms and his legs and his face and his head to sell his own flesh. And then when everyone turns up at the end, he's just a skeleton because he has cut all of the flesh off him and he is a goner. So this is my plan. Hopefully this is where you've got to. If not, rewind this video, listen to what I said last time and complete your sections 1 to 8. This is the first bit of your plan. The next thing we're going to do today to kind of help concrete and understand what's going to happen in our story is we are going to create a story map. So here's my story map, and I know you have missed all of my wonderful drawings, but you can see my sections 1 to 8 here. So section 1, you can see here that all the animals have been killed. In section 2, Diana turns up, and she's absolutely horrified to see all the animals. Section 3, he's trying to wash the blood off his hands, but he cannot get that blood off his hands, off his clothes, off his face. So when he's run out of soap, he goes out and steals money to buy even more soap. But he still runs out of money, so he tries to sell the sun itself to buy more soap. Apollo finds out about this, and he's really annoyed about it, so he disguises the sun as the moon so it can't be sold. Then our main character is so desperate for money, he starts cutting lumps of himself off to sell his flesh, and when everyone comes along at the end, he's cut himself up so much that he is now a skeleton. So, today, what I would like you to do is I would like you to go through those 8 sections and create one sentence plan for each of those 8 sections so you know what's going to happen in your story. So remember, we're taking this myth of the man who cut down trees. You are going to be writing your own myth, but based on that myth. So you're going to follow the same storyline, but it's going to have your own ideas in it. I'd like you to stick one thing for each plan and put it down as in 1 to 8. You can use the ideas I put on this PowerPoint and this video, or you can use your own if you think you've got better. And then I'd love you to create this story map of what's going to happen in your story. It's really important you do this stage because when we come to talking about it, this is really going to help you out. And by drawing it as pictures, it really helps you to memorize your story. Realize at this point, we're not looking at details, we're not looking at adjectives or powerful verbs, we're just planning out the main events of the story. When you come to send me your work back, you can send me those 8 things that you're going to put into your plan. I'd love to see a copy of your text map that you've done here, but you don't have to. You could just have a go at doing this at home and you don't have to send it to me, but I'd love to see a picture of it. Okay, well, good luck with today. Hope you have fun planning out your story. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.